Hello everyone, this is Mark Maritato. Thank you for joining me for another video. I'm back at narrating on this one. So today I'm working on an 8x10 sketch, a graphite pencil sketch of Colonel Haldimand S. Putnam. He was a Civil War colonel who died at the Battle of Fort Wagner, South Carolina. If you like this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And also be sure to hit that bell notification button, and also please leave a comment if you are so inclined so that we can answer your questions if you have any. Doing so will help me to create more artwork so that I could create more of this type of content for you. Here are the source photos that I'm working from of Colonel Haldimand Putnam. I'll be using this bust portrait as the basis of the drawing, but also using this full-length portrait of him taken during the Civil War to supplement and fill in the rest of the drawing. So I'm starting out here by doing very light marks, just indicating the general shape of the head and trying to work out the proportions of the facial structures, as well as the shape of the head, the size of the head to the rest of the upper body. This will serve as the foundation upon which the rest of the drawing will be built. I'm starting out with a 2B pencil, which is a pretty hard graphite lead, but as I move on, I'll be moving to a 6B and 7B pencil, which are much softer graphite leads that will help me to get those darker tones and darker values. As you'll see as the drawing goes on, you'll see more variation and more tones being built up as I go along. Right now, all I'm concerned about is getting the basic shapes and proportions correct. I want to make sure that the drawing is well proportioned, that the head is not too large or too small, that the facial features like his nose, his eyes, his mouth, every single facial feature is in the correct place. So I'm constantly checking the source drawings and the photo to make sure that I am correctly drawing in the structures of the face. So basically what this is putting down the foundation of the building. You're building the structure that the rest of the house, in this case the drawing, is going to be built upon. Every piece of artwork needs a solid foundation upon which to be built upon. Just like a house needs a solid foundation upon which to rest. And unless you have that solid foundation, you're not going to have a good, credible piece of artwork, nor will you have a house that will stand the test of time. So this portrait is being done at the request of a client of mine who had commissioned me to paint this painting of Colonel Putnam at the Battle of Fort Wagner, leading the assault into the fort just prior to when he was killed. He wanted this drawing to accompany the painting as a separate sketch to be hung with the painting as a separate piece of artwork. So gladly I was happy to oblige that request. So every once in a while you're going to see me draw certain parts of the figure in, and then you're going to see me erase it out and then draw it back in again, and that's part of correcting the drawing. As you go, when you're doing a drawing like that, especially with portraiture, you're going to be correcting yourself a lot. You'll be fixing lines that you thought were in the right place, and then you realize that they're not in the right place, and then you have to erase them out and basically fix them again. So you'll see me erase parts of the drawing in and out, and then drawing the certain parts back in again. And again, that's all just part of the process. If there's anybody out there who is just getting started in portrait drawing, or even just drawing in general, the one bit of advice I could give to you is do not be afraid to mess up. That's why we have erasers. We have erasers to fix things. So if you draw something and you don't get it quite right, just erase it out and draw it over again. It doesn't take that long, and really nobody will know but you. So don't feel self-conscious about messing something up or not getting something quite right, because literally anything in a piece of artwork can be fixed. All you have to do is either erase it out. In the case of a painting, you could just paint over it, or paint it out, or scrape it out and paint over it again. So yeah, there's no reason to get upset about messing anything up or not getting something quite right, because you could always fix it. One of the best things about creating artwork is that it allows you the latitude to explore and try different methods of achieving the results that you want to achieve. And part of that is messing up and sometimes redoing something, or not getting something quite right and fixing it. It's all part of the process, so don't be afraid. So at this point you're starting to see me use darker and darker tones. It's not that dark yet, but very slowly I'm going from very light to very dark values. At this point it's kind of a medium light value. Still trying to just work out the structure of everything. But as you see, as we go along, things are going to start getting darker and darker to denote more detail, denote the shadow from the light areas within the portrait, and slowly over time you're going to see the form of the portrait start to take shape. So I'm using a technique commonly known in drawing as hatching. And what hatching is, in very simple terms, is scribbling. And with this scribbling, what you're trying to achieve is to create the form using darker and lighter tones. So these tones are commonly referred to in the art world as values. So think of a value scale from very light or even white tones to medium tones to darker tones. So if you think of a scale from very light to very dark, that is what a value scale is. So obviously lighter tones will denote objects of lighter value, and the darker tones will denote items of a darker value, usually with a darker shadow or darker colored items such as a person's hair or a person's eyes will all be indicated in darker values. Whereas maybe perhaps somebody's flesh tones, I guess if they're Caucasian, would be indicated in very, very light values. And many times a lot of shadows will also be indicated in values from light to medium and sometimes even very, very dark, depending on what it is you're trying to depict in a drawing. So just to give you a little bit of a historical background on Colonel Putnam, as I had mentioned before, he was the colonel of the 7th New Hampshire Infantry at the Second Battle of Fort Wagner, South Carolina. He was an acting brigade commander, where he was commanding a brigade of several regiments tasked with leading the follow-up assault on the fort. The 1st Brigade that led the assault before Putnam was headed by the all-black 54th Massachusetts Infantry. If you're familiar with the movie Glory, which beautifully tells the story of the 54th Massachusetts, the Battle of Fort Wagner is shown at the end of the movie. What the movie doesn't show and what most people don't know about is behind the brigade that the 54th Massachusetts had been a part of, there was another brigade that followed up the assault, and that was the brigade that was led by Colonel Putnam. The assaulting columns had to traverse a beach to get to the fort. Putnam had started the assault on horseback, but eventually, very soon after starting the assault, the horse was killed out from under him, and he had to continue on foot. And it was getting darker and darker as the assault progressed. When Putnam made it to the parapet of the fort, he was greeted by nothing but absolute chaos. There were men who were mixed together from different units, wounded and dead men laying everywhere. The Confederates had successfully been able to keep the assault at bay on the parapets and was able to keep the Union soldiers from penetrating into the fort very far. When Putnam made it to the parapet, he encountered Major Lewis Butler of the 67th Ohio. He and Major Butler started to get together and devise a plan. There was a lot of confusion, and the writings of Major Butler seem to suggest that Putnam may have been really confused about what to do at the moment. So Butler and Putnam were trying to figure out a way to keep the assault going and to try to rally the men to try to get further into the fort. At the moment when Butler and Putnam were conversing about what to do, a bullet struck Putnam in the head and killed him instantly right in front of Butler. He actually wrote about this in his memoirs. Because of the nighttime assault and the chaotic nature of the battle, the Confederates were able to successfully beat back the Union attack. When the Union forces fell back, Putnam's body was left behind. He was dressed in a private's uniform. He had chosen to wear a sack coat with no distinguishing rank designation, which was a common practice of officers as the war progressed to make them less of a target to Confederate soldiers. Presumably, Putnam's body was left behind along with those who had fallen that he had led. His sword was recovered by a Confederate soldier while they were cleaning up the debris from the battle. The sword was then given over to an officer in the Confederate Army, and as far as we know, it stayed in the Confederate Army until the end of the war. After the war, the sword that Putnam had carried during this battle was then returned to his family. By the way, if you're interested in watching me work on the painting of Colonel Putnam at the Battle of Fort Wagner, I will leave links in the description to the playlist showing me work on that painting so you can actually see the painting develop just like you're watching this drawing develop. You're going to see me sign the drawing here, but then I'm going to keep working on it. Usually an artist will sign a piece of artwork when the artwork is finished, but a lot of times I'll sign a piece of artwork and then I'll keep working on it. And that happens with a lot of artists, not just me. A lot of artists will sign their work and then see something else that they want to fix or adjust, or kind of make some little final touches on. So that happens quite often. Alright folks, we're getting finished with this drawing. Thank you so much for watching. Here is the final drawing. If you're interested in any artwork, please visit my website at meritato.com. If you have any suggestions for what you would like to see me work on in the future, please leave it in the comments section. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe. Again, thank you so much, and I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.